Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Fig Noob to Fig Master YouTube channel. Today's main topic is Lesson 5, Frames. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about adding and editing frames while also combining all the other aspects of the previous videos to them. So, if that's what you're interested in, let's get started. When adding a frame, you want to go down to your toolbar and click on this. This frame button will open up a panel on the right. You'll see things like phone, tablet, desktop, presentation, watch, paper, social media, Figma community, archive. These are the different frame presets that you can use. A lot of times I use the desktop one. So I'll click on it and I can see that it gives me preset settings for if I wanted to design for a MacBook Air, a MacBook Pro, MacBook Pro 16, desktop, wireframes, TV. Another fun one that's pretty normal to use is the phone. So we have iPhone 16 Pro, iPhone 14, 15. And one of the nice things about using these preset frames is that you actually get a very cool look when you preview these prototypes. So let's create one with a phone and let's create another one for desktop, for a MacBook. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at this frame. You can see I have iPhone 16 1 and MacBook Air 1. You can see over here on the left that you have the two frames, both in your layers tab. They are separate, they're not grouped. But what you're gonna do is we're gonna make this iPhone kind of look like a website. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna use the rectangle shape tool that we learned about in the last video. And I'm gonna use Shift, drag to create multiple squares. Shift, drag, click, Shift, drag. Now, if I did that correctly, all of these rectangles will appear inside the frame. But that is because I dragged and put them inside when I created them. But if I do the same thing and I create the rectangle outside, you can see that this rectangle 4 is outside of the two frames. It's not inside the frame, indented like these three are. So there's a little trick to this. I'm gonna make it bigger just so it's easier to see. But the most important thing when trying to get something into a frame is your mouse location. So as you can see, when I have this and I drag my rectangle, click and drag onto the frame, if I drop it right here where my mouse is still technically off the invisible line of where the frame is, it stays outside. But as soon as my mouse crosses over, you can see that the blue line appears around the frame, and now I'm in the frame. Rectangle 4 has now moved to be housed within iPhone 16 frame. That's how you can tell whether something is in a frame or not, because if I get really close and I drop it outside, when I move the frame, my rectangle 4 isn't going to stay within it. But if I bring it and drag it inside, then when I drag around my frame, everything will move together. Another important piece to prototyping is going to be this clip content button here. This is a checkbox that's really based on personal preference. I prefer to have it off because it shows me what I'm actually going to see when I preview this tab. But if you want to be able to see everything, even if you have some overlap, let's say you have a prototype that's going to scroll, then you can turn that clip content off, and then anything that overlaps and goes off, you're only going to see what's inside the frame when you preview it later, but you'll be able to still see everything that goes off of it while it's still within this frame. Another important thing to remember that we talked about in the last video is alignment. So these red lines are everywhere. I want to make sure that everything is left aligned, so the left side of every single rectangle lines up. So I'm just going to click and drag all of my rectangles and place it like that. As you can see, the red line goes right up and down the left side, showing that everything is perfectly even. Another thing that you might have noticed right there is the number 68 appearing. That's telling me that there is 68 pixels between the current box that I'm holding, which is rectangle 2, and the rectangle 4, and another 68 pixels between here to here. So these three are perfectly spaced. I'm going to try to do that for this one, and by dragging it up a tiny bit more, I can see that now every single box has 68 pixels between it. This builds more of an even look between the entire page. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a shortcut to open up a preview. So I'm going to do Shift space, and it'll actually open up that frame on your screen in the iPhone. I think this is super neat that it does this. And if you click on this Open in Presentation view, when you click it, it'll open up a new Figma tab, and you'll actually be able to see your iPhone 16. If you really need to, you can click on this and you can actually change it here to a different device, but because I created it in an iPhone 16, it isn't going to fit as well. This preview can be very useful when it comes to testing. Anytime you want to put something in front of somebody, when you are working on, per se, a mobile app like this, you want to be able to see it the way that another person would. And in this case, you'd be seeing it on your phone. So this gives you an idea of, okay, I know that the iPhone 16 has this camera up in the top here, so my design shouldn't impede in that camera. So this little box up here in the top left is kind of impeding with the camera and going up into an area that we really shouldn't be designing in. So now I know when I go back to my prototype that I need to shift everything down to build space up at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the first one, I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to click on all of the other boxes. And while still holding Shift, I'm going to drag it down a little bit. Now, when I go back to my preview, I can see I'm no longer impeding in the top left corner of the screen. Now the same goes for the MacBook one. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to put ellipses. So if you remember from the last video, I told you if you hold Shift and drag out an ellipse, you'll make a perfect one. But if you click the ellipse and you just drag it regularly, it's going to make ovals rather than perfect circles. So I'm going to put a mixture of ellipses and rectangles and squares and lines all over this one. And eventually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these shapes and I'm going to turn it into something that looks more like a real website. So we have a header, then we have a round picture, then we take this line and I'm going to turn it and put it here and drag it across the screen. I'm going to put this picture here, and because it's a frame, you can see this oval is going off of the page, but that could work because it's possible that this page could scroll. And I'm going to add some text. This is a circle, and put it right next to it. Now we have a very basic prototype of a website. Since we have a mobile and a desktop prototype in here, when you preview the mobile one, it's going to open it in a phone. But when you open the desktop one, it's also going to preview it in a phone. So, unfortunately, if you want to do the phone look, you probably should do the iPhone view on its own. What you can do next is you can take this MacBook Air and you can switch from design and click prototype. Right now you can see that the prototype settings are just set to iPhone 16, which means that regardless of what you use, whether it's a desktop or a mobile view, it's always going to open in that phone. So for now, I want to see this MacBook one. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to switch it to MacBook Air. Now, when I preview the MacBook by clicking Shift Space and open in full screen, it's going to open it in a MacBook. Again, this gives you a really good idea because now I know that I can't put anything right here because that's where the camera impedes into my design. Another shortcut to use to be able to get to this, which is less of a shortcut and more of something that's built into actual Figma, is when you click on MacBook Air, if you click on this play button right here, you can click present, and that'll open the same exact tab up in the top. To easily create a frame, instead of having to go down here and click and drag out a frame, all you have to do is press F on your keyboard and it'll change. Now, if you don't want to use one of these preset ones, all you have to do is click, hold, and drag out, and it'll create a frame to whatever parameters you want to use. So if I wanted a 1295 by 555 rectangle to use as a frame, I can do that. You can also still resize these frames. So if I want it to be narrower and a little bit taller, all you have to do is click on the edge and wait for your mouse to turn into this side-to-side arrow, and then once you click, you can drag. Same thing works for vertically, where it'll go an up and down arrow, and then, once you click on it, you can move it up and down. You can also still come over here to the layout and change the width to whatever number you want to type rather than dragging. The number works as well. But it is important to work on your naming here, because right now I have frame 1, MacBook, iPhone. But if you do a lot of dragging, you're gonna get frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, and so on. So it can be good if I wanted to do something like homepage, and then this one changes to cart, so that I know in the future, while I'm adding to this page, I am adding to the home page and not the cart. If you wanted to view the prototype, you can only do so with a frame. If I put just a regular rectangle on the page, you can't view it. It doesn't work. You have to have a frame in order to actually view something. Another way to frame something when you didn't initially put it in a frame is you can right-click on anything, go down and click Frame Selection. Once it's framed, now if I click Shift Space, now I can view it. This is just a gray box, so let's add a little bit more to it. I'm gonna put a line through it, and you can see there, I started with the line off, so now I'm gonna click it and drag it into my frame. Once the outline turns blue, that means that I did it correctly and it's inside the frame. Now, when I view it by clicking Shift Space, I get a box with a line going through it. The last thing I want to talk about is editing a frame. So when I click on this cart one, I can see that right now I have the fill set to white. If I want a red background, I can go over here and I can change it to red, or I can use this color line to change it to a different color. I like green, so I'm gonna leave it at green right there. Now, when I click on the word cart and I do Shift Space, now I have a green frame instead of a white one. If you're interested in downloading Figma, go to the link in my bio and try it for yourself for free. And if you liked this video and want to see more videos just like this, make sure to like and subscribe to the Fig Noob to Fig Master YouTube channel. See you next time.